think my job is typically to be a witness. I mean, that's what journalists do. So I'm just, I act as a witness, and tell stories and write articles and do investigations on how various systems impact vulnerable people or marginalized communities. And so in that regard, I've had the opportunity to cover a number of systems that directly impact communities of color. Like the people that I cover are marginalized and underserved communities, Black and Brown communities, the disabled community, women, LGBTQ people, and communities, the ex-offender community, people who come out of prisons, those who are incarcerated, because a lot of stuff happens behind the wall that we don't know about. And part of my job is to discuss those things and to normalize it and to bring people outside of their bubble, to hopefully empathize with people that don't look like them or have a different experience than they have.
Let me say that since most people over the course of my lifetime will say that they got most of the information they have through traditional broadcast media or internet media, even if it's traditional internet media, that they, let me address that, because I think there are some common issues that have created injustice or perpetuated injustice or slowed the ascent of solving injustice, even as many of those organizations thought they were doing the right thing in other areas. So for example, they may create community affairs programs. They may make sure that they have an intentionality of going out and saying, let's go to this community and ask them about what their concerns are. So they have done those things. But at the same time, during the day, they may be running news programs that incessantly tend to portray communities in a negative light. Now, I can honestly say the people that I worked with never sat down and said, we're going to portray a community in a negative light. This was what I get to in terms of either ignorance or lack of multicultural awareness or lack of intentionality about the effect of what you're doing.
Well, I think it's becoming clearer now. I will say like 2 years ago, I'll tell you this, 5 years ago when I was covering, mass incarceration, and I wanted to do a certain kind of story, everybody was like, what? You want to bring that guy? Didn't he go to prison? Or they wanted to tell the story by leading what someone, the fact that they went to prison, or if somebody was shot and killed, they would say, well, this person had a rap sheet this long, when the rap sheet was irrelevant to this tragedy that took place. And so now people are sort of changing the dialogue. When something bad happens to somebody, if an unarmed Black man is shot and killed by police, why are we talking about his criminal record when it wasn't relevant to this particular situation? There wasn't a warrant being served. This cop didn't know this guy had a rap sheet, and this incident took place, and it shouldn't have happened, because people get very distracted by these type of facts. And we only provide the facts when it's a victim of color. If it was a white person who was shot and killed by police and he was unarmed, people probably wouldn't go look at his criminal past and throw that in there before they even have a chance to mourn this person's death. And so part of what the work is being done now, and is the result of this racial unrest, is us having these conversations and being more fair, and removing these racial walls and lines and gender lines and sexual orientation lines, because the way they tell stories about LGBTQ people or trans people is becoming better, because we're raising the shade on a lot of the racism, homophobia, transphobia that was just baked in to the journalism process. I do know that KYW News Radio works hard to support all of its journalists, and I am proud to be a member of one of the most diverse newsrooms, I think, at any radio station in this city, or just a very diverse newsroom, period. And so I'm proud to be a member of it. And I do think we have the thoughtful and tough conversations, and I'm glad we do. We still have to keep pushing for more diversity and to ensure that Black and Brown communities are properly and accurately represented. And not just when we talk about criminal justice, but also that we have positive stories about us too.
We could all ask a moral question. Am I doing the right thing? Are we collectively doing the right thing in what we're doing? Do we have a result that is not our intent, but it is still happening? And if it still keeps happening, if it happened once, you could say, well, I don't own that. I didn't mean that. But if it keeps happening, then don't we have some ownership of that? And then what would that be? So, education for the entire audience would help do that. The fracturing of the media system has made it such that people do have alternatives, even if they're not even really happy with the alternatives, they have them. And just those few clicks while they're searching that keeps them away from a channel can hurt that one channel's ratings. And so, people in the business are afraid to be that sea change person, that really transformational leader in this space, because they feel they're going to get fired 2 months later if they do it. So we need courage. We need honesty. We need a lot more dialogue, and we need public pressure. We need the public voting with their remote and voting with their clicks about what they won't watch, not getting sucked into this stuff.